for the beginning of the video, I'm going to explain something which is actually very simple, and people think it's really complicated. Also, don't mind me looking in the screen. See what I mean, though? Like, you want to look at yourself?
Yeah.
And you don't want to do that. You want to look there, you know? So, basically, here, I'll show the scenario going on right now. So, I got my truck in the shop. Check out the fact that there is, indeed, a check engine light. There are a couple things you could do, Presley. Number one is you can ignore it. Number two, you could figure it out so that it isn't a serious issue like my engine light is. So what I actually got this for, I think it was Christmas last year. I think it was like $40 or $50. Canadian Tire, if you're in the States, like AutoZone, you can get one of these for like 40, 50 bucks. You can get cheap ones for that plug into your OBD2 and you can connect your phone to. So it's right there, as you can see, right here. So all you're gonna do is you're gonna take your scanner, and there's kind of only one way it'll go on because it's tapered. So you take your scanner, you plug your scanner into it. You're gonna turn your key on, so you're in accessory mode, not so you're starting your vehicle. There's diagnose, lookup, setup, help, blah, blah, blah. Just click diagnose, it's that simple. It'll say processing. So my screen brings me to DTCs in the ECU. That's just explaining like the errors that it's reading. There's a whole bunch of other stuff here, don't worry about that. All I do is go down and it'll tell you to read codes or erase codes. There's data stream, freeze frame, O2 sensor test. All you're going to want to do is read codes. So it says to me here, number 1 of 2, knock sensor 2, circuit low, bank 2. So what that's telling me is the knock sensor, which is unfortunately under my intake manifold, in the back is reading a low circuit. So pretty much simple. It shows up right here. I don't know how well you can see that. So there you go. Pretty simple. Plug it in, turn your key on. Fairly simple, or take it to a mechanic. They will do a scan for you. Sometimes shops charge for a scan, sometimes they don't. I scanned my truck a long time ago, and I actually ordered the parts. With the GM trucks, what I'm doing right now, the knock sensors, there's 2 of them, and there's also, as you can see, here's the second one, they look the exact same, and there's a harness that also goes with them. Now there's these rubber little grommets that cover the holes that these sensors goes into, and so I'm going to actually silicone them so it prevents moisture in the future so I don't have to do them again. So I thought I'd make this kind of like a bigger video. Presley decided to come chill for the evening, so I decided to make it a bigger video so I have the tools kind of all set up so I can just kind of give like a brief rundown, at least for my truck, on what it's like to pull the intake manifold to change the knock sensors. Here are the tools I have laid out. These are optional. I brought these because I have them. But you're going to need a 3/8 ratchet. This is excessive, but I brought it just in case. I'm probably going to use this to break the knock sensors loose, hopefully. Obviously you need a light. This is a Mac light. You don't need to get a Mac light. Smaller flat screwdrivers, you know, for clips or, you know, for little miscellaneous things, especially the clips on the injector plugs. And the coil plugs as well. So same with these, can be used for the same thing. And I also have a trim tool to pull off all the clips for the harness on the intake. And like I said, these are optional. I like using this for the intake bolts. This I just brought just in case. And most of all, obviously, most of you don't see sockets, but I do have a set here. You don't need this kind of set. I just got this set because it makes sense for me and what I'm doing at home. I have a bigger set of sockets. So obviously you have all your extensions, you have, you know, just your basic ratchets, you have your 1/2" stuff, your 3/8 stuff, you have some more shallow 1/2" and 3/8 stuff, spark plug sockets, you know, 1/4" stuff here, you got your Allens, you got Torx here, you got some wrenches, just a basic kit to get you through. I'm not going to talk anymore about, you know, what you need for the job. I'm going to get started. Obviously, if you worked on a GM before, I wouldn't say it's necessarily simple. If anyone's watching this and wants an in-depth video on how to remove an intake from like a 5.3, a 4.8, a 6 liter, any kind of GM, just let me know and I will try and make that happen. Alright, so I just want to make a quick clip. We're not very far into the job yet. With these throttle cables on the older GM trucks, this threads into this spot right here, and this, pull it back and you slide it out of the bottom here. What I did was what you can do actually is you can mark your threads on how far it's sticking past out here, and just thread it back in after. You pop these 3 bolts off of here, and then I think there's 3 or 4 bolts on the back of here, and this should all just swing right over and out of the way, so that you don't have to deal with them and you can still get the intake up and out nice and straight. So just thought I'd mention that. So intake is off. How long total do you think that took me? Way too long, but how long total?
Hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah. Obviously these trucks are a bit different than like the 09s, you know, 2010s, 2011s, 2012s. As you can see, the intake is off and there's a whole bunch of stuff in there. So I'm gonna take the vacuum, which I got from the house, you know, good old house vacuum. I don't really have anything else right now, so gonna vacuum that out, make sure that's good, wipe it down with a rag. So we got the old intake gasket. It doesn't actually look in that bad, obviously it's dirty, but it doesn't look in that bad of shape. So what I'm gonna do is just show you, obviously when this intake is on here, or this gasket is on here, I'll show you kind of briefly how this works. So just kind of a rough way to put it on. So all it is there's a tab here, right here you pull off. There's a tab in the middle you pull off, and a tab on the same as this side but on the end, and it just comes off like that. So wiped it down just lightly, it doesn't need to be perfect. Grab our new intake gaskets, which are the same as OEM, but they are an aftermarket brand. But sometimes you get intake gaskets that actually go onto the heads first, but I personally like these ones a lot better, so we're going to do these bad boys. So just going to press this on like that, and this goes like that, and that'll stay on there. There's the difference, old to new. And then I'm just going to do the same thing on the other side. Not much time has passed, but as you can see, I'll shine the light in here. The new knock sensors are in, both front and back over there, as you can see. Now what I'm actually going to do is, here's the harness for the knock sensors, as you can see. I'm going to pull the black caps back, and I'm actually going to take some silicone, which I have over here. I have some silicone. I'm going to put some silicone on my finger and rub it on the edges of these caps, so that when I seat them after, once the harness is plugged in, that way I can prevent future moisture getting into there. Just a little bit of preventative maintenance, because I mean it is under the intake, it is kind of a pain in the ass. So anyways, that's what I'm going to do. How you feeling, Presley? We're going to continue, plug the harness in, and silicone it down, let the silicone set for probably 15-20 minutes just so it's cured enough so we can put the intake over top, and then hopefully get everything hooked back up and take her for a drive, hopefully. Well, we are officially all back together. Air intake 2 is back on, intake's obviously bolted up, injectors are all back in with the clips clipped into them. All the sensors are plugged in, map sensor, the sensor for the knock sensor is plugged in and clipped back on. All the hoses are on the throttle body, all the plugs are on the throttle body. Harness is bolted to the mount that it's on. The throttle cable is attached, hooked up properly. Threads are matched up to what it was before. Brake booster vacuum line is back on. I guess the only thing left to do now, which I was going to mention before and didn't. Whenever you get a code, and then let's say you figure out what it is, and then you go to change it, and you replace it, and all goes well, hopefully it all goes well for you, you want to plug your scanner back in to your OBD port, right here. And then you want to turn your key on. Click back into Diagnose. So it still will show your code, more than likely. Hit the down arrow. It says read codes or erase codes. I'm going to click erase codes. Clear, reset, emissions related diagnostic information. Are you sure? Yes, I'm sure. Please turn ignition on with engine off. Already done. Press enter key to continue. Have been cleared. Okay. So I'm going to shut the key off. Also want to give a big shout out to this guy. Oh, it's blurry. There we go. For staying here and helping me out, giving me a hand. One thing is, I did disconnect fuel lines, so I'm going to prime it a bit. I already had the key on once, so I'm just going to do it a couple more times. You can hear the fuel pump kicking in. Don't mind my manifolds leaking. So everything looks okay. Do you have your light on you, Presley? Thank you, sir. I'm just going to look at the fuel lines, make sure there's no fuel leaking. I don't see any fuel leaking. Keep an eye on everything, make sure everything sounds good, looks good. I'm going to go into the cab again. Check, make sure we got no more engine lights. So far, so good. The next step is let it run for a couple minutes and then take it for a ride, and then make sure you get no more lights, and cross your fingers if you get no lights in a good drive to where it gets up to temp and you drive even a bit more after that. Then it should be fixed. So this was bank 1 knock sensor. When I first looked at it, I was like, oh, well, that looks really good. But as you remember from the beginning of the video, the code was for bank 2, and this was bank 2. So all the moisture was getting in here and right onto this knock sensor. So one other thing too I will mention, you will get a bit of smoke here and there when you first start it up after you do something like an intake. There's brand new intake gaskets on here too, so you will get a bit of smoke. That's normal. If you get a little too much or if it's too long, then it's not necessarily normal. Alright, so we just got back. I forgot to film while we were driving, but other than my sending unit showing low fuel, there's no lights on the dash. No engine light. No nothing. So I do want to do plugs on this thing because it does feel like it still has a slight misfire. Sorry if this is kind of all over the place. This is my first time like actually filming me do something involved with cars or trucks or whatever. So anyways, appreciate this guy's help. Okay, peace out guys.